Today, after the whole goat lamb conversation, I want to talk a little bit about beef and kind of different factors that affect the carcass value. I'll go fast through these slides, that way if you have questions, we'll ask them at the end, okay? I might not even get to all of these. If you have any questions when we're going. So what are different things that affect carcass value? Size. Obviously, the larger an animal is, the more meat you're going to get out of it. Quality. Even though sometimes you have a large animal, it might not be as high quality as we expected. And then cuttability, like how much you're actually getting, how much meat you're actually getting out of that animal. And different breeds tend to give different characteristics. Okay, so the national beef quality audit is about 5 years. Every 5 years they do one. They're going to come out with one this year. But we can see that the industry has quite a bit of really high quality product. Prime being 4% of the meat produced in the U.S. Choice is 67. And we have select and standard and commercial. The lower ones, they just mean they don't have a lot of marbling and they're from older animals. And this is just kind of a price range. If you ever want to look at what something is going for in terms of pricing, go to USDA, AMS. Is it AMS.USDA? AMS.USDA.gov. And at that point, hit market news. And there's a whole bunch of news of how much beef is going for, how much chicken is going for, etc. You'll be sometimes surprised that you think you're going to get $4 a pound for something and it sells for 50 cents commercially, right? Now, the only way you can get a better price for your product is if you differentiate yourself. Make sure you're not the same that your neighbor, right? You want to make sure you produce a different type of product. Cuttability, it means when you raise an animal, is it a really fat animal? You might have an animal that weighs 1,000 pounds that looks like this. How much meat are you getting out of it? There's a lot of fat. But if the animal looks like this, you have more sellable product. We have had customers that bring us a fat steer. We trim off 200 pounds, throw it away, and then they say that we stole their meat. Right? We keep records of everything that goes in, and we can demonstrate that there was a lot of fat on that steer. When we have a really extremely fat one, we take a picture. Or when we have a really nasty looking one too, we take pictures. Because there's customers that think that because they raised it is the best beef in the world. And sometimes it doesn't work. Well, actually, most of the time it doesn't work like that. They do raise good beef, but... Alright, so, which one here, if you're looking at quality, which of these steers has a better quality? Which one has a better quantity? Can you tell the difference, you beef people?
One looks good, but I don't think you can tell from the outside.
No, you can. Technically, well, you should be able to, right? So when you are raising animals, you should be able to tell from the outside an idea of what you're going to get. So if you look at this top steer here, you can see that he's a little more full down here. He's got, from far away it might be a little hard, but he's got a little bit of a fat deposit there. It looks like he's more full in the brisket. That means that he's more finished. He's a little more fat. So technically fat gives you more quality product in terms of USDA quality. So that steer should yield a better carcass than the one in the bottom. The one in the bottom should yield more meat. It's more muscular. You can see that it's got more muscle expression. Okay? So, given that if we do this here, this steer was a yield grade 5 with a lot of waist fat, but prime, you can see that it seems like it's really valuable. It has higher quality meat, but it's got it in less quantity. So you end up with less product. If you do this one, which is a no roll or it doesn't grade, but it has so much more of it, you end up with a very similar number. So the idea is not to raise extremely quality product or a lot of it. The idea is to kind of be in between where you can take advantage of both worlds, right? The different breeds can help get you there. So the top breed is a Limousine. The black one is an Angus, right? Angus known for quality, Limousine known for one. Okay, wait a minute. I think I skipped a whole bunch. Can you help me with your Mac? No. Let me get up. Oh. So I talked about click that one. Okay, so we saw that one. Where, did I skip that one?
You
That
got
one
it?
was-
Yeah, no.
We didn't see this yet.
Yeah. but I'm gonna leave that one. Right. I'll go back here, now that I know what I'm doing. Okay, so we saw that, we showed you the price. Now what if you did not get all the way to prime? Then you end up with a really low value animal. But what if this one actually increased in marbling? You can see the difference, how much you can get. So just by having the right combination, you can get $500 more than this one, right? That was the whole idea of showing you that. Then I skipped a whole bunch. So it is, all this is a combination of genetics and environment. You have to have the right environment and the right genetics. If you do not have the right genetics, you can feed them until they are hogs, and you're not gonna get anything. And the same thing with the other way. If you have great genetics, but you're not feeding them the right way or don't have the right environment, you're not really letting them express their genetics, genetic potential. So it's a combination of both things. And I'm gonna skip through some of these, but you can see here, this animal has got more muscle, this one has more fat. This one should have been killed right about there, where this one could have used a little more time on feed. Okay, so again, depending on the breed, some people say, well, kill them about 1,000 pounds. Well, what breed is it? If it's a Criollo or a roping steer, it might not even get to 1,000 pounds, ever. So maybe at 800 pounds, you kill that. You kill the other one at 1,000. I'm just throwing it out.
Is there a chart for that?
I have some charts. I have some charts that I can, Dr. Tronsta is going to share these slides, right? So this one here, this slide represents that usually when you have the most muscling, you have less marbling. So the more muscular an animal is, tends to kind of decrease the quality of that meat. So you wanted to raise Charolais. What did you want to raise?
Red Angus,
Oh, Red Angus, Charolais.
Charlotte.
Mix them. If you're going to raise beef, you're probably getting a better product if you have a Red Angus cow and a Charolais bull. That would be ideal if you're raising beef.
Yeah,
Now,
crossbreed.
crossbreeding. Crossbreeding is the best thing if you're raising beef. If you're raising genetics, there's a difference there. If you're raising genetics, you want to keep it pretty pure, right? Same breed. Maybe just look at, within the breed, look at differences. They want to understand what crossbreeding is, right? You take one breed, different breed, cross them. You get the best of both worlds, right? Hybrid vigor. Not a lot of people realize that. Some people kind of get hung up on a breed. And they said, oh, I want this one. And that's all they want. But if you want to get the most out of something, is when you crossbreed them, that's when you actually get the best result. If you are raising beef.
Okay, so, and then you don't continue the line, right? You still have like the mother and father, or basically the progenitor of all your birds that you sell, and you just keep them.
You just keep them separate. Now, a good idea, let's say you want to get some, you want to keep the same blood in terms of the mom. You can get some AI, inseminate them with, let's say, Red Angus, just to get some more Red Angus animals, and then have the Charolais bull come over and breed whatever it doesn't take. So that's a way of still having some Red Angus heifers be born, and getting the beef, right? And there's sexed semen out there. So you can buy semen that's for females or males, depending on what you want to get.
Yeah, that's the name.
And that's what dairies do. You know, dairies, if we want to, now with dairies, we're starting a research project that we're mixing jerseys with limousine, and they look like regular beef animals. And when they meet heifers, they just breed to a Holstein female semen, and they get their heifers from there. The rest are bred to a beef type. Okay.
You mentioned that, but what about goats as far as, because I have boar goats and those suckers are just a pain, but I think I go Nubian, so can I cross them?
You could, right? So what does a Nubian provide?
Dairy.
Dairy. The boar, meat. So now you're going to have a multi-purpose breed.
Calmer animals.
Hope so.
Depends on the nutrient line.
Yeah. Well, it depends what you want to get, right? So if you're looking for calmer goats, you look for that trait, you breed it into your herd. You can find, sometimes you can get the right genetics within the breed if you want to keep your breed pretty pure. But let's say in cattle, we talk about Brahma. Those are kind of crazy, right? But in the desert, I suggest you have about 25% Brahma in your cows. That way they can do better.
Yeah.
Right? Now, it's not, a lot of people prefer to just have straight Angus, but why do we want black Angus? Anyone here?
Marketing.
Huh?
It's a marketing thing.
It's a marketing thing, exactly. Some people think that black Angus are better. Well, certified Angus beef has done a really good job at marketing their brand, which is 51% black. At least in the specification, the animal has to be 51% black and has to meet certain characteristics. Well, now everyone's like, oh, I want to raise black cattle because they get paid a little bit better because they can go into that program. Now in Arizona, you might be better off raising Red Angus or Charolais or those type of animals that can handle the heat better. Right? So sometimes fads kind of come and go. A lot of people right now, someone mentioned earlier they're raising Akaushi. So Akaushi tend to have really good carcasses. I've killed a few myself, and they're good. They eat well, but they take a while to grow. So that's a downside of Akaushi. But you know, it just all depends. If you can get into it and differentiate yourself with that, then you do it. So you have a whole bunch of different genetic lines. In terms of cattle, obviously Holsteins are for milk, Angus, Hereford, Maine. This one I think is a Gelding. You have Charolais, different types of animals. They were bred for different purposes at one point. Meat quality, milking, meat quality. These down here were bred to pull wagons and plow, so they are more muscular. Because they're more muscular, they have more connective tissues to support their muscles. So they're a little tougher type of meat, right? So you don't want to have too much of this or too much of that. Again, if you're producing beef, the best thing is to crossbreed. All right, so here's a good chart if you wanted to look at. So these stars represent how much marbling an animal has. So a Jersey cross, which is actually a milk animal, and Holstein, they have actually pretty high marbling. But look at how much muscling they have. Very little, right? Limousine have a whole bunch of muscle, but look at how much marbling they have, right? So that's why, remember I tell you we were doing a cross, taking the best in terms of marbling and the worst on marbling, but you're flipping them and mixing them together, hoping to end up right about there. Any questions so far? Yes?
You were saying earlier about, you get these ones that are big and you cut off a bunch of fat and kind of toss it. Is there anything wrong with that? Could you render it?
You can render it.
Okay.
What's the value of that fat? And why did you have to feed it so much? Right? Ideally, you want to take them off feed when they are at their optimum. So a yield grade 2 with a choice carcass is probably a really good animal. So yield grade means how much meat you're going to get out of it, right? And the lower the number, the better. So an animal that has a good yield grade usually doesn't have that much marble. But if you have genetics that actually marble at a better yield grade, you don't have that extra fat. And you can render that fat, but then the value of your meat becomes diluted, right? You have to have your meat sold at a higher price to kind of counter the low price of the fat. Okay, so this is what these look like, right? So limousine, really muscular, Jersey, no muscle at all. That's what we're trying to breed right now. See how they perform. But even within breeds, you have differences. This Angus versus this Angus. Can you see the difference in muscling? Right? So like I said, sometimes even within the breed, you can kind of do, you're not crossbreeding, but you're getting that exceptional animal to kind of show some differences in your herd. Environment, if you are feeding your animals, how long do they take to get where you need to go? If you're going to sell beef as an end product, what type of beef are you going to sell? How many of you here want to sell grass-fed beef? Okay. How will you plan to sell yours? Your Akauchi.
Got some on grass, but I'm feeding them right now on barley, but I don't have any problems with fattening up on corn.
So you will feed them on corn, right? So how long are they going to be on feed? There's an optimum time where you have to figure out your herd, when is that? And usually what happens is that as time on feed increases, your cutability decreases, right? You get more fat. So the ideal time would be to feed them right about there. Usually it's about back fat of 0.4 to 0.5 ounces, where they get good marbling and good cutability, and neither of them are downhill. And that has to be figured out depending on the breed. If you're going to use any growth promotants, that's important to know, because a lot of the consumers now are looking for that natural, right? And if you're feeding or if you're implanting the steers, even though it's totally safe, some consumers might say, I don't want that. So there's some other growth hormones like hormones, or these steer beta agonists that shift nutrients to being actually muscle rather than fat. So, which one here has the best cutability? Which one's going to produce more meat? That one or this one?
Right.
This one's going to produce more meat, right? Is it really high quality meat? How about that meat?
More marbly.
Oh, it's a lot more marble. But then also look at how much fat it has. So we don't want to be here, we don't want to be there, right? We have to find a middle. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to skip this one, go to that one. So for example, here we're mixing the Charolais with black Angus, but you can mix it with the red. So this is an example of an ideal beef animal where it's prime, not too wasty, and you can get a good amount of money for that because you're getting the benefit of the muscle and the benefit of the marble. Okay. So how do you select for that? You can do it with EPDs. If you have a bull, there we go. If you have a bull, if you're buying a bull, or in case goats, I don't know if they do this with goats, I haven't really looked into it too much, but for bulls, you can have EPDs. This REA means ribeye area. That's usually where you look at muscling. Yield grade, yield grade and then marbling. So you want to have something that combines well. Let's see if I have them highlighted and be like you. So like this animal here has a good REA. Anything positive, that means that it's larger than the average. So you can have an animal that has a larger ribeye area. That's going to give you more muscling. But you can see that here it's having a negative impact on marbling because that's a negative number. So heavy muscles, low marbling. This one here has good marbling, but it's negative in the REA. So if you're just introducing marbling and you don't worry about muscle, you want to pick that one, right? Or you want to stay in the middle where it increases REA and you have good muscle and good marbling. So when you buy genetics for your bulls, or I think goats have genetic information too, you can select for that specific genetics. So if you are a small operation, how many head, 10, 15 head, 20 head, I would suggest you breed good genetics. Because if you are trying to do it with just odds and ends and different animals, you're never going to have the consistency. And if you're going to sell your beef, you want to have the consistent product for your customers. So if you're only selling 25, maybe you can ask $4,000 a head once you start selling. So you got to think about that. So what is your story, right? So some people think that quality is USDA grade, so prime choice select. Some people think that depending on how it eats, if it's tender, or if it's natural, or no hormones added. Some people see value in that, even though it doesn't have the prime quality. Grain-fed, grass-fed, what are you selling? The story of the beef is really important. So right now our consumers really want to know where the beef comes from and who raised it, and that animal was raised properly and that you treated it well, etc. So it's really important to tell that story. And I am gonna, these are our prices, and you can, once we share the screens, you can see these, but these are processing charges, if we do anything extra, and then we have like a very specific cutting instruction. So we ask you how you want things cut, how you want them wrapped, if you want them vacuum sealed, if you want a paper wrap, etc. Okay? So I'm gonna ask questions. What can we do for you? I went too fast because I wanted to about 7 minutes of questions. And then after I'm done with my call and we're headed to the farm, you can always ask more too. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Is it better to breed registered livestock or gray livestock?
Depends on what your goal is. If you are trying to sell offspring for other people to use as bulls and cows, registered is better. But if you're just selling beef, it's better to breed good cattle that don't cost you $4,000 a piece at the beginning. Yeah. So, if you are, I would suggest you buy a good bull. So your cows can be whatever cows to start off with, but a good bull can make a big difference. Yeah. Yeah.
So what would you be looking at, like red Brahman and a red Angus? What how would the marbling or?
So Brahma tend to not marble very well, and they are also a little bit tougher in terms of the meat.
Okay.
So I would suggest if you are breeding Brahma, fine genetics that have good marbling and tenderness. There are some Brahma lines that have focused on that, and they still have the heat tolerance. Or you have already cows that are, for example, F1s, that are half Brahma, half Red Angus, and then you use those as your moms to be out there to a good bull that's, let's say, Red Angus,
Okay.
back to a Red Angus. That way you end up with an offspring that's a quarter
Okay.
Brahma. So that's kind of how you play that.
Do you guys do your grading of when you butcher?
So that is a good question. I said that inspection is free. So food safety inspection, FSIS is free. They will come and inspect your facility, your animals. But to grade them, if you want to label them USDA Prime or Choice or Select, you have to pay for that service. So for us, that we're such a small plant, it doesn't pay for us to bring someone out just to grade a couple of carcasses. So we don't grade them, we don't bring someone to grade them, but I can tell you, this is an equivalent of a Prime or a Choice. Right.
I guess what I'm looking at, I got registered Angus and I got Perfect Cross.
Right.
When I bring some to market, I like to see where, if they're being fed and cared the same way, which one's gonna be the better quality.
Right, we can,
That's what I guess I'm looking at.
without the official USDA stamp, I can tell you this would have been a Prime
Mhm.
or a Choice or whatever. So
Okay.
yeah, we can do that.
Are you allowed to legally sell it without that official
You-
stamp?
Yes,
Or-
because that is a marketing tool,
Got it.
not a food safety tool.
Got it.
So FSIS, they will come and inspect, and you can sell the product. It's just AMS, Agricultural Marketing Service, developed the other program so that customers understood what they were getting.
So you can say USDA inspected versus USA Prime, you can't do that.
You can't,
won't be able to get that.
correct.
Yeah.
It is USDA inspected, but it's not USDA graded.
Graded. Yeah.
Yes,
What's your typical lead time on processing? I mean, do you have to call 4 months ahead, or you guys?
usually 2 to 3 months. We just started a research project this last week, so that one's gonna take us a month and a half. And then our roof started to leak this summer with the monsoons, so we got some money to replace our roof, so I don't know when we're gonna do that. I think it's gonna be about March, so we might be pushed even further back, because we can't work in there when there's no AC or whatever. So usually it's a few months, but right now it might be 6 months because of that.
Okay. To get on the schedule, we just email you, or how do we get?
You can email me or call that number that was in the beginning, 520-318-7021. Did I go too fast? I did.
Yeah.
520-318-7021. That is the office number.
Processors besides U of A, I know big corporates does their thing. Are there more individual processing plants around?
Around here,
Yeah.
yes, you have, the U of A is a USDA inspected plant. In Cochise County, there is Cattleman's Processing, that is a USDA inspected plant. In Queen Creek, you have Southwest Miller's Processing. They are ADA inspected, so if you kill there, you can sell it in Arizona. You have, I think there's one called Holidays in the Buckeye area.
Yeah, holiday.
Holiday, yeah,
Are they,
Yeah.
are they ADA?
I think they're ADA.
Yeah. My son-in-law's taking some pig cows to them.
Yeah. There's also in Wilcox, you have Wilcox Meat Packing. I think they're custom mostly. You also have Carter's in Safford, they're custom. Let me see. I'm not sure about the one in Yuma, but
When you say custom, that's just for.
that means that you can
local.
take it to them. You will have to eat that product. You can't resell it. But if you're gonna eat it at home, they'll do the work for you and you take it. So that's another way, kind of a loophole. It's called an exemption. So if you sell the whole animal to someone, you can take it to a custom processing. You don't have to get it inspected.
Because it's not graded or it's not.
Because they're gonna eat it